I came here to talk about a couple of issues on the Armed Services Committee that we're going to be facing. And I would only say to my good friend from Ohio that, yes, it is true that 9/11 occurred. It is true that we have Al-Qaeda out there, we have the Taliban out there, we have terrorists. We have terrorists who want to kill everyone in this room and all throughout America. And that we were not in a position financially to go and defend our country after 9/11. I would suggest after Pearl Harbor, the same situation took place. We didn't have time or the luxury of saying, do we really have the resources to go into this thing? But it was necessary, and it did happen. Unfortunately, back in the 1990s, during the Clinton administration, the amount of money funding our military reduced by about 40%. Not just the money, but the resources too. We went down in terms of end strength, force structure, modernization, in operation, personnel, about 40%. There's kind of a euphoric attitude around the country at that time. People were saying the Cold War is over and we no longer need a military. I can remember it so well. And then, of course, with that downgrading of the military and the peace dividend, we all remember the peace dividend would take the money that was going to go to the military and would declare a peace dividend. Well, unfortunately, peace is not there, and 9/11 happened. So this president and this Congress inherited a war, an attack on America, the most vicious attack that we've had on our homeland here in the continental United States. Well, anyway, we had to fight that thing with a reduced army. We had to rebuild the army at the same time. If I had known that the statement was going to be made by my good friend from Ohio, I would have brought my charts down with me to show very clearly what happened to the military during the 1990s. So, yes, we do have that problem. It is an expensive war. It's an enduring war. We've been over there, all of us have. We know we're going to win. Things look very good right now in Iraq. It's going to be a little more difficult, but it is necessary. It is necessary to do it, because if we hadn't done it, we would have the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, all of these groups over there running rampant. And the big difference now in terms of how it affects the United States of America is that back in the days before they had the nuclear weapons and the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, a terrorist might be a soup case bomb or something like that. But now we're talking about weapons of mass destruction. We're talking about Iran, according to our intelligence estimates, as early as 2015 could have an ICBM capable of hitting United States of America on the East Coast. So that's why it's so much more difficult. And I would say also that my good friend from Ohio talks about the Republicans voting these. Well, it wasn't the Republicans that did the $787 stimulus program, billion-dollar stimulus program that didn't stimulate. Those were the Democrats. But nonetheless, that's not why I'm here today. I only want to say, when I came here, I noticed that on this week's agenda, and I'm reading now because I think it's right, that we are going to have 3 more hearings in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on the New START Treaty. Well, that means that we will have had, when that's over, 16 Senate Foreign Relations witnesses over 7 hearings. All of them support the New START. I'm kind of reminded of what happened back when we were considering another treaty, the Law of the Sea Treaty. That passed the Senate Foreign Relations Committee it was 16-0, as I recall. When it came to the floor, I recognized, and frankly, not many others did, that this is a very serious thing. This was the treaty that Ronald Reagan had fought so hard against, and it was coming up. That was a Republican administration. That was the first Senator or President Bush, and they were going to be running this thing through. So we held hearings. At that time, Republicans were a majority. I made sure that we had hearings in both of my committees, the Environment and Public Works Committee, as well as the Senate Armed Services Committee. Well, now I see the same thing happen. I gave a rather lengthy talk last week, and I'm not going to repeat it now, but on why we should oppose the New START Treaty. We all remember START 1, we remember START 2, but we keep in mind that the treaty we're talking about is a treaty not with the countries where we are anticipating problems. It's between Russia and the United States. And it has to do with weapons of mass destruction, with nuclear warheads, reducing them in conjunction with reductions that would be imposed upon Russia, and at the same time, delivery systems. We have three ways of delivering them. One is, of course, ICBMs. One's SLCBMs, that's the submarine launch, and then the other is through aircraft, such as the B-52 or the B-2. Well, the problem with that is we have not, first of all, we have we've been talking about our nuclear warheads and how we have not been able to modernize them or even to test them for a matter of decades now, so we don't really know what we have. In the way of force structure, we do know that we have a declining force structure. This administration put down the new system that would have been the next generation bomber, so we're stuck with the B-52. It was the first variety of that came out in 1964, before a lot of people around here were born, and of course the B-2. So we are not going to modernize that. The missile defense system, we saw what happened over in Poland, that this president made a determination to stop the construction of a ground system in Poland that would have the capability by 2012 of knocking down an ICBM from Iran to the eastern United States. That's gone. And verification. There's no verification on this, very much the same as the verification on the that we talked about on the old law of the sea or treaty and others. So I just hope that when this comes up, we could keep talking about it and not let it run through. And I'm going to make this very, very clear. I happen to serve on the Foreign Relations Committee as well as the Armed Services Committee. So we'll be having hearings. We have 3 this week, 3 more this week. Not one of these hearings has a witness who is opposed to the New START treaty. They're all witnesses that are right there with the president and a part of that program. The other thing that's coming up that I want to just kind of, no one's talking about it now, but it's something that did come up in the Senate Armed Services Reauthorization Committee hearing, and we'll be considering that before too long. They made very strong statements to do away with don't ask, don't tell. I just remind my colleagues that back in 1993, we had this problem to deal with, gays in the military, how to do it. And the Clinton administration, I think, was those that came up with the program, Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Quite frankly, it's worked very well since 1994, since it went into effect. And I think that for us to just unilaterally say, well, we're going to change all that and have gays open in the service, and so that people are really not there, so many of them, to serve, but to use the military to advance a personal agenda is wrong. Here's the interesting thing about it, because all of the military agrees with what I'm saying right now, or at least they did until the White House got involved with this thing. I'm not sure where they are now, but on the 28th of April, both Secretary Gates and Admiral Mullen said in a joint statement, quote, "We believe in the strongest possible terms that the department must, prior to any legislative action, be allowed the opportunity to conduct a thorough, objective, and systematic assessment of the impact of such a policy change." And so they did. They decided that they would conduct this study and report back on this coming December 1st. So, but just to let you know where the military is on this, I have to say that all the chiefs of the military, General Casey of the Army, said, and I'm going to quote, "I remain convinced that it is critically important to get a better understanding of where our soldiers and families are on the issue and what the impacts on readiness and the unit cohesion might be, so that I can provide informed military advice to the President and to the Congress." He said, "I also believe that repealing the law," that we're talking about the Don't Ask, Don't Tell law, "before the completion of a review will be seen by the men and women in the Army as a reversal of our commitment to hear their views before moving forward." What he's talking about, Mr. President, is he made a commitment. We made a commitment to all of the military out there that before we repeal this law that has been working well since 1994, that we want to get all the input. And so we set up a mechanism whereby I'm talking about all the troops that are out there, they could evaluate this thing and make a determination as to how this changing that law could impair our readiness situation. Admiral Roughhead, the U.S. Navy, we need this review to fully assess our force and carefully examine potential impacts of a change in the law. My concern, I'm quoting now Admiral Roughhead, my concern is that legislative changes at this point, regardless of the precise language used, may cause confusion on the status of the law in the fleet and disrupt the review process itself by leading sailors to question whether their input matters. We ask for their input, then we declare what the results are, which they've done in the House and actually in the Senate committee with language. General Conway of the Marines, he said, I encourage Congress to let the process the Secretary of Defense created to run its course. That's the study that goes to December 1st. To run its course. Collectively, we must make logical and pragmatic decisions about the long-term policies of our armed forces, which so effectively defend this great nation. Then General Swartz of the Air Force said, I believe it is important, a matter of keeping faith with those currently serving in the armed forces, that the Secretary of Defense commissioned review be completed before there is any legislation to repeal. Don't ask, don't tell. Such action allows me to provide the best military advice to the President and sends an important signal to our airmen. Of course, he's the Air Force chief, so he's concerned about airmen and their families, that their opinion matters. To do otherwise, in my view, would be presumptive and would reflect an intent to act before all relevant factors are assessed, digested, and understood. So that's the military, and that's what they all agree. And I think it's very important that we keep in mind that we made the request, preliminary review of some 13,000 service members and families being interviewed. That's 13,000 interviews. 400,000 would undergo a survey, so that they would get their input through a survey, and our military is not asking for this change. So that's what it's all about. That's what we're faced with, and I think that the only way to stop this, if we really believe the military is right and that we are right, and I would say this, I have a letter that is signed by myself and Senator McCain, Senator Graham, all of these from the Senate Armed Services Committee, Senators Brown, Inhofe, Thune, Burr, Sessions, Wicker, Vitter, and Chambliss and Lemieux, all of us saying that we need to wait until such time as this the results are in before doing something. I am very concerned about this. The 1993 law states, and I'm reading from the 1993 law now, it said there is no constitutional right to serve, and the military is a specialized society that is fundamentally different from civilian life. In living conditions offering little or no privacy, homosexuality presents an unacceptable risk to good order, discipline, morale, and unit cohesion, the qualities essential for combat readiness. Making this retroactive is another serious problem with this change that they're talking about doing. So I think that those of us who are on the relevant committees are going to be trying to appeal to this body to consider that those issues, those amendments that were passed right down party lines, be reconsidered on the floor. And the individuals are going to have an up or down vote on this very critical issue. It's very interesting that when we had a report that was due in December 1st, all of a sudden it has to be done before the election. And it's all for political reasons. So I guess I just say to my colleagues, get ready, because we're going to have a debate, an open debate on this floor. And I would think that myself, I think some others might want to make this a major issue for discussion and even require a cloture vote before it's over. With that, I yield the floor and suggest to yield the floor.